Now, there's been some theories since the last 2 episodes about Bran being Azor Ahai instead of Daenerys or Jon Snow, and I think there's a lot of merit to that. I mean, we've got 2 different Red Priests in 2 different camps. Melisandre says that Jon Snow is Azor Ahai, but the head of all the Red Priestesses is saying that Daenerys is. And nobody's mentioning Bran, and I think this is clever. It might be that we have this big build-up of who is it, Jon Snow or Daenerys, and after all it turns out to be Bran. Because really, who's most powerful? Bran has shown himself to be a very powerful green seer in war, definitely stronger than Jon's warring power. I think it would be an interesting twist. However, I think that there are going to be 3 heads of the dragon. As far as Daenerys goes, an interesting question as we get nearer and nearer to her coming back to Westeros and kicking ass is who are going to be the 3 heads of the dragon. Of course, she's got one of the dragons, and it's looking more and more like Tyrion's going to have one of the dragons, which is going to be great when he alights on the Red Keep in King's Landing and just comes casually strolling down the walkway while Cersei and Jaime and all the rest kind of look on with awe. That'll be a great scene if it happens. But who's the 3rd? Is it Jon Snow? A lot of people say it's Jon Snow. But the 3rd head of the dragon seems to be someone somewhat subservient to Daenerys, and I don't see Jon Snow being subservient to Daenerys. I think it's somebody else. It could very well be Jorah Mormont. I don't see how he's going to be able to see that, be able to ride a dragon without any Targaryen blood. But there's another possibility too. I don't think. But Euron has a horn that is supposed to be able to control dragons, and he's sailing towards them. She needs the ships. How's this going to play out? I think Euron's going to steal a dragon with his horn, and Daenerys is going to be put in a situation to try to get it back. I don't see her just marrying Euron. That's not going to happen. She's too proud, and he's too proud, and that just isn't the culmination of the plot as I see it. But I do see a possibility of him stealing the dragon with his horns, with the horn that controls him, and then having the ships and saying, "Hey baby, I got your ships, I got your dragon, let's get married." And she has to seriously consider that because she really needs those ships. Now, a 3rd possibility for the head of the dragon, besides Jorah or Euron, could be Aegon, who hasn't been introduced yet. He's in the books, but he hasn't been introduced in the episodes. And he's probably a Blackfire, but either way, he's got dragon blood, and he could possibly ride a dragon. I don't see anything wrong with the possibility of him being introduced late in the series, because he's introduced late in the books as well, which lets us know that he really probably isn't as important to the plot as any of our main characters, and therefore something of a red herring. If Aegon does get introduced late in the episodes, and he does ride a dragon, I think that he'll probably die very quickly. Somehow it could be Bran to be that 3rd dragon. There's the quote often heard that you will never walk again, but you will fly. Now, I think that's more referring to his green dreams, but it could be possible. It could be Bran is a possibility. He's a long way away from Daenerys at this point. That's another argument for why Jon doesn't seem like the 3rd dragon. But just thinking of what's most probable, and I think that it's going to be not so clear-cut as Bran or Jon riding it. I'm still holding out the idea that the ice wall, the wall might actually contain frozen dragons, ghost dragons. If you've read the short story, I think it's called The Ice Dragon by G.R.R. Martin, it seems like it has a lot in common with Song of Ice and Fire, and I believe that in some sometime in the past, there probably were a different species of dragon, and they were the ice dragons as opposed to Danies, and we may see them waking up before it's all done. There's a lot of theories about the type of time travel that's in Game of Thrones, and everybody's pretty much established that anything that Bran does to change or alter the past has already happened in the present, so it's already taken effect. And it seems as if he can't change any kind of fate or destiny, such as the fate of Hodor. I want to put forth the theory that pretty much all brands associated with the Starks are somewhat, in at least some aspect, incarnations of the Bran that we know, reincarnations of the Bran that we know, time-traveling Brans. You know, there's been a lot of speculation that Bran is also Bran the Builder, and I think he's also Bran the Breaker. He might be the Night's King, who was also, old Nan said, named Brandon Stark. According to the legends of Westeros, in this Dawn Age, leading into the Age of Heroes, the Night's King took a wife who was cold as ice and lifeless with blue eyes, sounds like a White Walker, took control of the Night's Watch, and it took Bran the Breaker, who might have been Bran the Builder as well, to take him down in an alliance with the King Beyond the Wall, who at that time was Jormon, and the King of Winter, which is a very elusive type figure. Well, he also might be a Stark, because the Starks were later referred to as King of Winter. This person never was given a name, so what I'm seeing here is possibly that Bran's tried to change the fate of the world many times in his time traveling, and sometimes he's gotten it wrong, sometimes he's gotten it right, sometimes he might have been corrupted, and possibly this instance in the Dawn Age and the Age of Heroes where Bran is fighting the Night King, he might actually be fighting himself. He might even know and on purpose be doing one thing to cause one thing to happen on the side of the White Walkers, and then have a counter thing happen with another incarnation of himself on the Stark side or the Night Watch side. All these things, because so many things have to happen to correct the damage he's done, and his damage might have been something very simple like what happened with Hodor. A lot of people are mad at Bran because of the way he sacrificed Hodor, but I think in some ways that's taken away from Hodor's character. Bran may have been kicked out of Hodor's body at the very end, and young Hodor sacrificed himself to save Bran's consciousness. I think there's a bit of consciousness in it. I don't think it's just all Bran's control. In the end, I think that Hodor chose to stay. He could have run away and got away from that door after Bran popped back into his time zone, and instead he stayed there and held it. And I think that he's lying on the floor, the way he's jerking, mimicked the way that the big Hodor is standing in front of the door, and his life became one purpose, to hold that door. And it wasn't just Bran's conscious doing it. If you listen to the song that the young kid wrote, who plays the young Hodor, he actually says the same thing too. And you can check that out on SoundCloud. Drove him insane, but he decided to sacrifice himself consciously for his friends, because all in one instant he understood the importance of it. When he saw Bran, when Bran opened up that link to his future, he understood the significance of it, the importance of it for the world. Bran, I think, might have been snapped out of Hodor's body and instead was overwhelmed with his concern for Hodor in the past. Usually when you see Bran take over Hodor, Hodor is very expressionless. It's as if he doesn't feel pain or anything. He's almost like an automaton, but holding that door, he's showing a lot of emotion, and it's Hodor-looking emotion. Hodor mannerisms, not so much Bran mannerisms. And he's mimicking that in the past on the floor in the Keep at Winterfell when he's screaming, "Hold the door, hold the door, hold the door." And some part of Hodor, I think, knew exactly what he was doing, and knew that that was the most important thing the rest of his life. The most important answer that he could give for any given thing is hold the door. He's got to hold that door. He knew in the past and the future he's got to hold that door. Well, it's a very good possibility, I think, that either Bran or Bloodraven, the three-eyed raven, orchestrated Bran being... Remember, he's following the three-eyed raven in his dreams when he's climbing, and he seems to be somewhat following the three-eyed raven when he's climbing to that tower, when he sees Jaime. There might be an aspect of Bran who caused the modern Bran to go and look inside that tower so that Jaime Lannister would push him out the window, so that he would be crippled. Why? Because ever since the Dawn Age and the Age of Heroes, these famous Starks named Bran have been dying very young. As a warg and a wildling and a dream seer, these reincarnations of Bran have always been very powerful. When they're young, very adventurous, they go off and they get killed.
When I last saw you, boy.
The Bran Starks of the Dawn Age and the Age of Heroes were great builders. They lived a very long time, hundreds of years. They built the wall. They may have built some of the greatest monuments in Westeros. But in the ages after that, after the Andals came and the Targaryens, all the Brandon Starks have died very early. There's Ned Stark's older brother, who was very brash and got killed for it. I think there's an uncle after that who did the same thing. They all die young, they do something stupid because they're very passionate and they go out and fight, and they die in battle. Well, the only way to keep that from happening and making the cycle complete so that a mistake can be corrected is that Bran falls, gets crippled so he doesn't get killed in battle during the War of the Five Kings, like Robb Stark, and instead he fulfills his destiny, finally becomes a Green Seer, and regains the height of power that the Brans of the Dawn Age and the Age of Heroes had. And so I think we're going to see a lot more reveals as far as the time traveling and how it works, and what Bran has done to influence the past in both the Dawn Age, the First Age, and his struggle since then. There's been many of them, and every time they die at a young age doing something brash or bold, because they have a lot of passion, they got a lot of power, and they never get the chance to learn any type of humility. Could Bran be forever stuck in a time loop of fighting himself, different instances of himself? Maybe be bad as the bittersweet ending. He keeps Night at bay by always forever being stuck in this time loop, battling himself, correcting past mistakes that he's made in one incarnation or the other. Martin has said before that he's gone against a kind of a rule in fantasy, in that he has repeating names, people with the same name, people with the same names throughout history. And he did that because he's going to have more than just an alphabet's worth full of characters, and because that's the way it is in real life. But I also think he had another motive, and that motive is to obscure the fact that Bran is reincarnations of himself over and over and over again. All the rest of the Garts over and over again, and the Robs over and over again, that's meant as kind of a red herring to throw you off the fact that all the Brandons are pretty much the same people. I think that they are, or most of them. And I think that Bran may have orchestrated his own crippling in order to prevent that, because they're running out of time. The White Walkers are coming. Bloodraven / Bran saw this and sent the three-eyed raven to make sure that Bran saw what he saw and got pushed out of the window so that he would become the Green Seer instead of being yet another Bran who goes off to war and gets killed. During his many lives and his many time travels, he's made mistakes and he's going back trying to correct them, and these different forces of Bran are coming in conflict with each other. And how are they going to resolve? I've heard people say that they don't like the added magic and time travel that has come into play this season. But I think that the Hodor reveal was just one of the greatest things ever for George to keep that secret for so long, ever since he wrote that first book so long ago, and to so intricately weave that and to think ahead to create that twist is just amazing. And I think he's got many more to come that are going to blow our minds even more. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of returning faces by the end of this season. I think we're going to see Sandor Clegane again. We've already seen the Blackfish again. We've already seen several characters again. I think that we are going to see the return of Lady Stoneheart now that we're back to the Riverlands. And either by the end of the season or the very beginning of next season, we're going to see Aegon more than likely, when we might see Lord Connington too. Now, I know these haven't been introduced, and they were introduced earlier in the books, but the season has, the television show has to stay on just a few characters for a good bit of time, whereas in the book, you can have just 3 chapters in a book for one character and kind of string it along a little bit. And also there's the fact, if you had introduced Lord Connington and Aegon 2 seasons ago, how you know those guys weren't going to get a better contract, and then you'd have to switch actors as they've had to do before. I think all these characters, the important ones at least, or the minor supporting characters who have more than a bit role, a lot of them will be introduced, but of course Connington's not going to get to have Grayscale because Jorah's already stolen it from him, and their stories will be a little different. Well, thank you for tuning in to Fantasy or Prehistory. Please subscribe. We release every Thursday, and we talk about all things fantastic and prehistoric, from books and movies to games and music. We'll be talking more about Game of Thrones next week. Subscribe, make a comment. We'd love to hear from you.